as you may or may not know, September is Suicide Prevention Month,
Hmm.
and it's important that we talk about it. We talk about mental health, uh, quite a bit on the podcast and on our websites and stuff. It's a very important issue, especially in the construction trades where it's five times. I think the stat is five times more
Yeah.
prevalent in the construction industry as any other. Um, I guess, career field. And it's pretty staggering. I think the number was like 60 out of 100,000.
Close to
People.
70. What
Yeah.
blows me away, having been in the military, you would think that the armed services would have a higher rate, but no. It's construction, the world of construction. It's a sad fact, and we've talked about it on this podcast with experts. We've talked about it with contractors, people in the industry. But I'm really looking forward to our guest today talking about it because I think he
Yeah.
brings a whole different passion and perspective to the conversation.
And he's doing really, really great work. So what do you think? Should we bring him on?
Let's do it.
All right, man. We're excited to bring on Tom Murphy. He is the founder and director of Sweethearts and Heroes, which aims to prevent hopelessness, bullying, and suicide by providing dynamic, inspiring content that centers on the human interaction skills necessary for organizations to change all aspects of their culture, such as empathy, compassion, and teamwork. Tom, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Tom.
Hey, fellas, that sounded fancy. I don't know who wrote that up. Jeez.
I think it was your PR
Yeah.
guy.
Well, number one, just so you know, I'm just a dumb wrestler. I wrestled my whole life. Wrestled all the way through college. The only reason I got into college was because of wrestling.
Okay.
I also spent almost 20 years of my life in a very manly industry, and I say that very carefully.
Mhm.
But I spent 20 years of my life almost in the rail industry, so
Yeah.
very similar to construction world. And
Yeah.
left that world a long time ago, about 16 years.
Where'd you grow up?
So I was born and raised in Philadelphia, man, the city
Okay.
of brotherly love.
There you go.
And I was about 10. I moved upstate New York. And so I kind of call that home, but I've lived in Vermont since 1999. So
Yeah.
that's what we call home today.
Yeah. And you had mentioned before we jumped on, you were in, as you mentioned, the rail industry for 17 years, and then you made this kind of drastic change in your life, and it was almost like a calling to do something else. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick nutshell. I'm a rambler. I'm very self-aware of it. So I will cut myself off, but don't be afraid to jump in. So my parents, I grew up in Philadelphia, like I just said, and my parents ran a mission home, and we had no money growing up. I remember my mom shaking up. My dad would hide $2 bills in books, and I can remember my mom shaking them out, trying to find a $2 bill just to get a gallon of milk growing up. And but we always had people with us, and that's kind of when this journey started for me. But of course, as a young person, you don't see that. And we moved upstate New York when I'm 10, and found the sport of wrestling. Just fell in love with it. It became one of my saviors. Gave me every skill I needed to be successful. Though I had a very, very challenging time academically. Fast forward, I get into college. If I told you the story, you'd believe in cosmic forces. It's just too wild to believe. Found myself wrestling, fell in love with education, got a degree in philosophy and psychology. A man came into my life and just believed in me, inspired me. But when I was done wrestling, I just wasn't ready to stop. And so I started tinkering with jujitsu and filmed myself on a reality TV show, 40 Days in Vegas. But I was working at the same time. I got introduced into the rail industry after college. I just fell in love with just the I don't know, I hate to say it, but the manliness of it. Rail, ties, steel, locomotives, just it's a tough, dirty, physical industry that's built our country.
Yeah, I was
And
going to say it seems like
doing
it's bit hard work.
yeah, man, it's tough, but I'm moonlighting side by side doing this mixed martial arts stuff. Had a couple bosses that just loved it, and I didn't know what was happening.
Mm.
And after I did this TV show, and it's why I got to kind of give that background, people started calling me. People, hey, my kids saw you on that show, The Ultimate Fighter, and could you come talk to them? And I just had great bosses in my life, man. Just really important people. A guy that took our company from $500 million to 2 billion, and he shepherded me, and his team shepherded me. Uh, Took this meathead and gave me some skills, and found myself just getting into management level positions way before I should have been. And but I've always been good at giving lessons to young people because I'm in a wrestling room on the mat talking to young men, and I just started talking to young people about leadership, motivation, goal setting after this show. And a buddy of mine from college called and said, "Hey, I'm in trouble. Had this speaker coming in, do something on bullying, fell through last minute. Can you do something?" It's just 900 middle schoolers, which is like a nightmare. And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I can." So I came up with this silly little presentation with a very intentional title. And when I say it, people are like, what does that mean? Sweethearts and Heroes. And I delivered that to this one school. Another school heard about it. And 2 million students later, from Houston to Hawaii to Montreal, by 2000, it started about in 2009. By 2014, I quit my job, one of the loves of my life, 4 kids at home, went all in, partnered with a man named Rick Yarish. 60% of Rick's body was instantly burned away in Iraq. Here's a man that knows hopelessness like no one else, laid on his back, looked up into the sky in Iraq and decided to die, and rolled one more time, fell into a canal that he didn't even know was there. And then he went on his journey. And then the universe just put us together. And we've been on this mission. And just to kind of land this plane, a year ago, I get a call from an electrical contractor, said, "Hey, one of our employees that is in human resources, one of their family members sat in one of these circles you do in a school in upstate New York. Could you bring that and do it with some of our linemen?" And I'm like, "You want me to sit in a circle with a bunch of hairy dudes and talk about their feelings?" And so I went on a new journey about almost a year ago, and really started to dive into this world of destructive decisions with contractors. And it's just staggering what's going on under everyone's nose. And big topic to talk about, but the universe has put me back into this field of safety for some reason. And it has just exploded around us. And I don't even know how to control what's going on. But yeah, that's the nutshell of how I got to this space.
Well, you think about the space that we're talking about, the construction building trades industry, and let's face it, we think we're tough guys. How do you crack through that hard exterior or shell to talk about empathy and emotional intelligence?
How much time you got? That's been my life, baby. That's been my life. And let me just reframe what you said, because what you said is very accurate about the 5 times. But let me give some context to people really briefly, and then I'll hit that up. And if you want to change directions based on what I just say next. So the general suicide rate in America is somewhere between 12 and 14 per 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. That's how we measure it. Our children are at that rate today. That should make sense to no human's brain or heart. Okay. The military, we hear about the 22 a day. The Marine Corps leads the charge at 34.9 per 100,000. So that right there, it just makes people stagger. Electrical contractors, 67.8 per 100,000. They make the Marine Corps look silly. And I don't say that in any kind of funny way, but these men that are building this country, and I've been working in particular with linemen, and I've had a newfound respect. You know, when I'm sitting on my couch and my power goes out and I'm complaining because I can't turn my cell phone on and my refrigerator's thawing out and I'm getting all irritated, these men and women are out there sacrificing their families, working hard in unbearable conditions sometimes, around, hundreds of thousands of volts of electricity. I mean, there's tons of science, or there's quite a bit of science that's coming out about electromagnetic frequencies. So we have a real problem in this country, and nobody can put their finger on it. And nobody has the solution, but what we're doing is not working. And that's where we come in, because the system that we've set up is, let's dump money into intervention, psychopharmacal intervention, counseling, social workers, psychologists. It doesn't work. If you go to a bunch of dudes and you say, hey man, here's a sticker for your hard hat or your helmet. Hey man, here's a website to call. Now, I have spent the last 2 years going to Camp Pendleton working with infantry Marines, the greatest savages on planet Earth. Like, here's a gun, take it, run through that door and die. Okay. And I don't say this. I have a daughter who is an infantry Marine. So I love these individuals, but you're going to get them to call and talk about how weak they are? Never going to happen. But it's the same thing with young people in America. They don't want to go sit and talk to a counselor. Their parents are going to be upset. Their friends are going to think they're weird. Like, it's not going to happen. And all we do is create more EAP lines. We do all of this, intervention when someone, but that's not the secret. The secret is upstream prevention. And what are we doing for that? And that's what you're asking. You're saying, what are we doing to get these guys so they don't get to that point? And that's really where the work that we come in, that I know works, because I've seen it with my own eyes at Camp Pendleton and for the last 16 years of my life with young people. So it's a big conversation, and I'll try and hit some highlights, but I'll pause there because I'm sure I just tripped a few switches with you guys.
Well, one of the things doing research on the organization and what you do is having a sense of belonging in the workforce, having a connected workforce is so important. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, man, belonging is a big topic. When people say, the first thing anyone will ask you when you talk about those stats is, they say, oh my God, why? Mm-hmm. And that's the first thing. And I'll get to belonging here in just a sec. But the first thing you have to say is, what's the why? Why is this happening? And it's one word. It's the same reason 22 service members end their own lives. It's the same reason Caitlin Nicole Davis, Olivia Scott, Amanda Todd, Ryan Halligan, Tina Meyer's daughter, it's the same word, because they feel hopeless. That's the monster. That's the war that we're in America today. It's not a war against race, gender, poverty. We have issues with all of those things, but it's hopelessness that is the monster. And for us, hope means hold on, possibilities exist. And that's from the great one, from the great Rick Yarish, right? That's been his message for the last 16 years of his life, that it's about getting through those moments of hopelessness. Now, then everybody says, okay, if that's the why, Tom, then what causes that? And there's two great wrestling matches that we all have that lead us to feelings of hopelessness, which each of these deserves their own podcast, right? There's this feeling of meaning, purpose, significance, right? It was the great philosopher Nietzsche. He said, he who has a why to live can bear anyhow. Those are like old fancy words, but if you have some kind of meaning in your life, some kind of reason, purpose, significance, it can get you through just about anything. I mean, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, just really deeply goes into that. I'm reading it right now with a lineman because he's struggling so much. And, meaning, purpose, significance is a fundamental. But the other core axiom is that of human acceptance. And, Rick's got just a beautiful story, if you have him on, just this little girl that, he was just terrifying children because he's the quintessential monster. And this little girl runs away from him and gets back to her grandpa and says, Grandpa, he's really nice. And at that moment, something went off inside of him. And he just goes, it wasn't that I wasn't accepted by people. It was that I wasn't accepting myself for the challenges I was going through. Now, let me just pull these together, because for me, belonging is the collision of those two things. Now, you might think, no, that's acceptance. No, it's not, right? Belonging is having value that you bring to a community, whether it's your home community, whether it's your work community, and it's having that acceptance of the community utilizing you as a very important part of that community. And then it's very hard to become hopeless when you have that kind of value. That's why we haven't seen this in most of human history, because people had that sense of belonging within their community. And really, that's the big challenge. So, how do we get back to that? And I'll land on this because I'm sure you guys want to jump in. If you haven't read The Anxious Generation, if you're listening, Jonathan Haidt, I have a lot to say about that book. It's why New York State, every school has gone cell phone free this year, which I could blow up the podcast on that one topic right here. But here's what I do agree with him on. And I've been to 1,000 schools in New York. So if someone thinks you're going to fool me on what's going on in school systems, you got another thing coming. And I'm no expert. I'm just a dumb wrestler. But I've been in front of 2 million students, parents, and teachers face to face. But the central conclusion to that book is we have to get back to community. And that's what provides this sense of belonging for every member, so that all of the different skills, all of the different superpowers that each individual brings to whatever community they're part of fulfills those basic needs of significance, meaning, purpose, and human acceptance.
Tom, we do a weekly update on our website, and it goes out in our newsletter on Friday mornings. And in this week's weekly update, John talks about kind of that loss of belonging, that loss of community, when Americans felt like they were all one versus what we feel today. I know the pandemic played into that a lot. From your perspective, how bad was the pandemic for us, and are we regaining some of that sensibility, or what we see on TV and our phones and in politics just continually to not destroy but erode the opportunities that we have of becoming one again and communicating and mingling and being a community?
Well, man, I don't get hung up on water that's gone over the dam. It's a shame. People have tragedy. The world unfortunately went in the direction of Freud, who'd said, let's focus on the past. That's not me. And now I might not have the right to say that because I didn't get blown to hell in Iraq, but Rick did. But if he were on this podcast, he'd say it's the best thing that ever happened to him. He wouldn't change it for anything. And that's exactly what Viktor Frankl said about meaning. He said the greatest meaning in life comes from the attitude that you take towards the unavoidable suffering that you go through. If the world had just went in the direction of Alfred Adler, everything would be different. Because you got to take those difficult situations and you got to say, this might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. That's a hard thing to do. But when you have people around you that can help you through those things, these sweethearts, these 16th century bullies, that's one of the great solutions. And you're like, 16th century bully. Well, I told you the word, the title of who we are is a little confusing to people. But the word bully in the 16th century, about 40 years after Columbus sailed, was first introduced, and it meant sweetheart. It was a very endearing term. It was someone that kicked you in the shorts, said, get your crap, get in the car, you picked this stupid sport, you're not quitting, right? You brought that new instrument home. You were going to be some rock and roll star. It was hard. Young man, I bought that for you. Start practicing. And if I took those people out of your lives, both of you would just disappear from this podcast. One of the common threads that we share as human beings are the people that help us through those moments of hopelessness. And that's what sweethearts provide. They give you hope when you need it the most. So just getting back to what you were asking, I don't get hung up on the pandemic. It happened. It's the way it is. We got to move forward. But what did happen is we really accelerated this. And no one can see this, but I'm waving my phone here. And I have a lot to say about this device. They're not going away. Yeah. But go to any job site in America, electrical, plumbing, it doesn't matter. When someone's got 15 minutes break, 20-minute break, That's what they're doing. They're looking, they're scrolling these variable reward scheduled systems that people have to understand, and I could go into some really deep science around that, but that doesn't matter. What matters is people have to be synchronously embodied face to face. The brain does 10 quadrillion things per second. No one even knows what that means, but your subconscious is in control. The neurons, the 120 billion neurons that you have are wiring, especially in youth. But even when you get older, we know that it still happens. The plasticity, it slows down the paring away of circuits as well. And empathy, one of the great circuits in our brains that is built through three specific stages, has been cut almost in half in the last 30 years. So we need to get back to what causes empathy to grow neurologically. And that's the work that we do. And we take a 400,000-year-old practice called circle. People say, oh, you guys do circle? That's some leftist, weird thing. No, it's not. Go to any construction site. You see the guys around the tailboard, whether they're spitting in the center of it, whether they're smoking a butt, they're talking about hunting and fishing and doing what people have done for millions of years. Mm-hmm. And we're systematically eliminating that. That's a problem. And we got to get back to it.
Tom, real quick, because you talked about this very early, and I didn't want to gloss over it. You grew up in a mission family. Is that where you saw empathy at its finest with your parents, taking care of people that were so down on their luck that, they had no other place to go?
Dude, I can't even comprehend what my parents did. And, it wasn't like a state-run thing. My parents, they got this big old stone house in Philadelphia. I think they bought it for like $26,000. Struggled, ran a fruit stand outside, but they were always taking people in. And a lot of weekends I spent going to prison, visiting my brothers and sisters, watching them getting taken out of our house in handcuffs. I slept in a bathtub for a year. My parents gave their only son's bedroom away to someone that needed it more. And I just thought it was just the way things were. Like everybody had people living with them. And I don't think half of it was smart that my parents did. But it is what it is. So I think early on, I don't think I was the most empathetic person in the world. I don't think I'm the most empathetic person in the world. Frankly, I think I'm a savage. I can get into a ring and smash another man's head. I have. But something happened. And I think it's more around compassion. And empathy and compassion are a couple different circuits in the brain. Compassion, here's the definition. It's the sympathetic consciousness of another's distress with the desire to alleviate it. The sympathetic consciousness of another's distress with the desire to alleviate it. Empathy there's a couple different kinds of empathy. You have cognitive empathy. You stub your toe. You watch me stub my toe. You're like, oh, I get how that feels. And then you have affective empathy. Like if we watch a dog get hit by a car in the street, most people are like, oh, that hurts my heart. That's empathy. Compassion is using that empathy and actually doing something to alleviate the suffering of another human. So I really think maybe as I've thought about my own life, I think maybe my compassion circuits back then were forged more than maybe even my empathetic circuits, because I watched my parents bring people into our freaking home, give their son's bedroom away, give people food that we didn't have. Like that, I think is, if I had to analyze myself, and I've never done it like that before. I mean, you just kind of forced me into that, which was kind of neat. Because I don't know if I'm as empathetic as I am compassionate. And so, yeah, that's pretty interesting. But I'll kind of end on this with this little piece. I'm so tired, fellas, of this awareness stuff. all of us go to conferences and keynotes and lectures and watch Instagram reels and TED Talks, and everybody's like, oh my God, this is incredible. It's amazing. Like, and then we go back to our lives and nothing
Yeah, there's no
changes.
action.
Yeah, there's no action, man. I've spent and I'm not flexing here. I've spent 220 days a year on the road for almost 15 years, getting with young people, getting in circles. 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting at 5 show ups in the dirt, in chairs with these hairy dudes talking about their freaking feelings. And they freaking love it, man. They love it
Yeah.
because they crave it as a human. And we got to get back to that, man. I'm just so done with this awareness garbage, man. And it's not garbage. It's needed. People got to understand it. But what are you doing?
Yeah. So how much time do we have, Tim?
As much as you need, JP, as much as
A few minutes ago, you were holding up your phone, and you said you got a lot of talk about it. But on one hand, social media is a space where there's a community of support where you can go and reach out to people. We talk about it all the time. We go to trade shows and we go to different events, and there's a connection because of social media. People have never met before, but they feel like once they do meet, they're like, oh my God, I've known you for my whole life. So there is that community aspect of it, but there's also bullying. There's also, we talked about inclusion where people may feel not included. I feel like people on their phones, a lot of the time during the day, like it just engulfs their time. I feel like it's destroying some fiber of humanity, I guess. I hate to be like overstate it, but what are your thoughts on that?
Man, what a double-edged sword that one is, man.
Yep.
I got to say about that. This is not a biblical, I'm not trying to push any kind of biblical narrative, but I don't know if it's the second or third. Somebody looked that up, the second or third chapter of the book of James. And I think it just talks about the tongue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got one tongue and you got all these teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
These guards that should bite that sucker off because, it really does have the power of life and death, right?
Yeah.
But, you got this device, and very similarly, one of my favorite scientists is a guy named John Medina. He wrote a great book called The 12 Brain Rules for Learning. And but he wrote another one, and any parent listening, it's real short. It's on Audible. He reads it himself. This guy's a freaking hoot. And it's called Attack of the Teenage Brain. If you got a teenager out there, man, get the book. I promise you, you'll go from start to finish on this book. It's such a great book.
Okay, wait. Who is it again?
John Medina. He's one of the great molecular biologists of our times, and but it's called Attack of the Teenage Brain. It's on Audible. He's great, man. I've studied him for a decade. Anyway, here's what he says about these devices, and I'm a defender of phones for young people. And again, that's a 5-hour conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I got myself in big trouble in one of my first schools this year already, because I started having conversations with young people about phones and technology, and a couple of the teachers were not impressed. But anyway, here's what he says. He says both cognitive and affective empathy can increase with a child's social media. And that one should make you pull your freaking hair out as a Gen Xer. But think about it, fellas. The first time in history that someone could be like, here's how I feel. There's kids, when you look at the big 5 personality traits, right? There's kids on one end of that continuum that don't have very much openness, which is a personality trait. And they're not going to share their feelings, but now they can. That's good for the brain.
That's true.
What about that kid that feels like they're alone? For all of history, there's people listening to this right now that are like, man, I couldn't express myself when I was a kid. And I also felt like I was on an island alone. Now kids can find people that they can connect with that have similarities. When you look at the 3 basic psychological needs, right? There's 3 basic psychological needs. And the third of the 3 is relatedness. As human beings, we need relatedness with other people. And that's from Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, self-determination theory. And if you don't have relatedness, man, it's that almost like that sense of acceptance.
Yeah.
So it's really tricky, man, because these devices have so much power and they have so much utility for all of us. I mean, you could any carpenter, any contractor can pull it out and do things and save people money because, oh, I found a different way to do it. I'm
Sure.
going to help my customer out. I can connect with someone. I can get a new friend. I mean, man, it's like that's that book of James where it's like, dude, that tongue can kill you or it can save you,
Mhm.
but it's a choice, right? And you know, that's what it comes down to, man, is this free will that we have to make the choices that we make in life. And I'm not a determinist, but yeah, I just think that we have this ability to make choices, and this can be used for good. It can be used for, isn't that the craziest thing, fellas?
Mhm.
Like the first book of Genesis, it's about, or the second book, it's about good and evil, whatever that means. And again, this is not a theological thing, but it's the same battle we're facing, right? And you know what the craziest thing is on the back of your iPhone? What is there? A picture of a what?
Apple.
With what out of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
A
it's the
bunch.
same battle. And
Yeah.
just take it from a purely secular point of view. That's a magical story, okay?
Mhm.
But it's the same battle. The
Yeah.
battle between good and evil. And really, it's coming down to this sucker right here. This phone is really what determines your use of it. And man, it's just powerful stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's about choice though, man. And you can make the choice to help someone. You
Yeah.
can make the choice to sit with someone. You can make the choice to call someone. You can make the choice to listen to someone. You can make the choice not to go out in your boat and just go hang out with your buddy instead. Like that's
Yeah.
a choice that you make.
Yeah.
And that's really the solution.
I gotcha.
Speaking of choice, we've been talking about basically being disconnected as a society or humanity. You currently have on one of my favorite T-shirts of all time. Um, Share a little bit about the impetus of the shirt, why you wear it, and how hopefully it's breaking down the barriers of feeling disconnected.
Yeah, man. 9 years. This is my ninth year. Every day I donated all my shirts. I had a teacher. Crazy story. I wish I could tell it to you. I'd waste too much time telling it to you. But something happened at a school. I made this shirt. I was going to wear it for a month. Found this teacher wore it, same set of clothes all year because she takes it home and washes her outfit every day because she met a young man that only owned one pair of clothes, started this clothes closet. It was a huge success. So I was going to do it for a month. And I owned a restaurant for 12 years, about 70 employees. And so I wore it for a month, only there on the weekends because I traveled during the week. And I took it off and I came back to the restaurant the next month and people like, where's the shirt?
And
Like every day.
by the way, the shirt says
Oh yeah, free hugs.
free
Right.
hugs, just so
I always
everyone
forget I'm not on video here, but it
right.
says free hugs. And
Yeah.
so that March, 9 years ago, I just went all in and I donated my other shirts and just went all in. And I haven't missed a day in 9 years. But what's really important is the back. And the back says squeeze for oxytocin, which has got me in a lot of trouble. I told you on the
Yeah.
pre-airing of this that I had a guy in Texas come up to me and like accost me. He's like, "Don't you ever wear that shirt again?"
Mm.
Because he read Squeeze for Oxycontin, and his whole community was
Oh.
ravaged by opioids. But we had a beautiful conversation. I wear it everywhere. I spoke at the Pentagon last year. I wore it. Got myself a picture behind the lectern at the Pentagon. I
Nice.
wore it to Rick's wedding. He was so pissed when I showed up with it on. Funerals. I wear it everywhere, dude. I'll be buried in a free hug shirt. You can take that one to the bank. But oxytocin is a neurotransmitter. We hear about dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. And dopamine's not bad. It's what really drives us forward. It's not the content, it's the anticipation of the content, which dopamine searches for. But oxytocin, we haven't really found anything negative about it. It's the bonding agent between humans. When you two hang out together, if we took blood samples, saliva samples, you'd find that your blood and your saliva are coursing with higher elevated levels of oxytocin. Like dogs have 100 times the oxytocin of a human. That's why when your dog comes in the door, it makes you happy.
Yeah.
It's always, I mean, you can kick a dog, which you shouldn't do, but it'll still like you the next time it sees you for the most part. It's oxytocin. And we can create relationships without oxytocin, but what it really does is it signals safety to people, and it makes the bonding so much faster. And if you had a bunch of dudes around a tailboard and you took their saliva samples, you'd find elevated levels because they feel safe. Their backs are turned to the world. They're in a circle. They're, not even protecting themselves. And there's just a ton of research around oxytocin. The world just needs more of it.
Yeah.
It's what's going to counterbalance some of this addiction and these other things that we're going through. So, yeah, man, I know I gotta give you the fast forward version of some of this. But yeah, man, and I give them away. I give away probably 500 a year. I keep them in my car, and I just expense it all myself. And somebody's like, "Oh, I need one of them shirts." "Oh, I got one for you." People on the highway, I stop at rest areas. I just give them away, dude.
So
I love
Tom,
it. I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger. I hug it
I'll
out.
send you one, man. Send me your address. I'll send you one.
So Tom, you mentioned that we're recording this before you're out to go. I'm assuming speaking at an engagement later today. Tell us, for people that listening to this podcast are plumbers and HVAC guys and the construction trade industry. Tell us, like, if somebody wants to hear you talk or find more information or be more involved with what you do, tell us about that.
Well, I'll take you right back to the the great device, www.sweetheartsandheroes.com.
Yeah.
Heroes is Heroes. I know most people know that, but you'd be surprised how many people forget the E.
Yeah.
But any kind of social media, I don't do any of the social media stuff. We have somebody that does it just to get the word out there. But you can find anything there. But most importantly, man, if you reach out, I'll get back. I have a 100% response rate myself at this point in my life. I mean, I'm overwhelmed right now with stuff, but I just give my life to this, fellas. I left a hell of a career, made a lot of money in the rail industry, and I don't say this to flex, but I make $2,500 a month with Sweethearts and Heroes by design, and I've just decided at my 50th year of life that I'm downsizing everything in my life, and I refuse to serve two masters. And anybody that thinks they can serve that master, and humans, he's a better man than me. So if you get a hold of me, I'll do my best to get back to you. We'll be at several locals in the Northeast on the electrical contractor side, but we do know that the statistics we gave in the beginning are for construction.
Right.
These linemen are just in a real bad way for a lot of reasons. And so the universe has had us first. One other thing I'll mention, because on the military, the universe brought a man into my life named Chad. Chad was a major in the Marine Corps. Left after 3 combat tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. I'll see him in a few minutes. We're down here in northern New Jersey talking to a big electrical group today, and really a special guy that struggled. He was, he hit a wall. His commanding officer, basically grabbed him by the throat and said, "Dude, you can go through anything. What the hell's wrong with you?" And he couldn't explain it. He just hit a wall at 17 years. Here's a guy that's still running 100-mile races today, and he's a stud. But he just hit a wall, the same wall that our people are hitting today in America.
Yeah.
We're losing 40,000 men a year. You think about that and you compare that number, to different wars. We're losing 40,000 men to their own hands every year.
Wow.
And we got to do something about it, fellas.
Yep.
And if the world didn't have two fellas like you, the word wouldn't get out.
Well, we certainly appreciate everything you're doing. In fact, as a military member myself, please tell Chad and Sergeant Rick, thank you for their service. Give them a hug from me. or a hug from us, because appreciate all that you're doing. Incredible story, but I cannot end this conversation without asking you, because you're also a restaurateur.
Yeah.
You did some really cool stuff during the pandemic, gave away thousands and thousands of meals to your community. That's impressive by itself. But what's your last meal?
Like ever?
What's your last meal? Yes, the proverbial last meal. What is it?
That's a good question, man. Let me think for a second. Let me ramble for a second and see what pops into the old data bank here. Um, I collect questions from young people. Changed my life. In Circle, it's about questions, and I used to try and come up with my own. I stopped doing that. I try and tap into a young person's wonder beam. There's a couple kinds of intelligence. You have fluid intelligence, and this is what Socrates tapped into. This is why they killed him, because he was tapping into kids' fluid intelligence. We have crystallized intelligence that continues to rise the rest of our lives. So I'm a question collector. And my last meal, man, that's a tough one. I want to say lasagna, but I'm not a carb guy anymore. But my mom would make me a lasagna. My mom was a sheetrock mom. She was not a cookie mom. I come home from school, she'd be, head over her head with a bandana around her face, and but she'd make me an apple pie too. And I'm gonna lose my dad in the next couple of years, which is tough. I'm going through that myself, just getting older. But my dad's a cook, and I guess my answer after this rambling would be, man, that's a tough one. I don't know. I think if I could have a last meal, I'd want my dad to make it, and I'd finish it with my mom's apple pie. So maybe I give them the choice and
Yeah.
make me whatever they want to make me. That would be my last meal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, right on. Well,
I'm
Tom.
gonna see my dad tomorrow. I'm gonna ask him what
Yeah.
my last meal is gonna be.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Thank you for that. Beautiful.
So Tom, I mean, we've talked almost 45 minutes. We'd love to have you back on. There was the mention of having Rick come on and accompany
Would
you. I
love
think
that as
that would
well.
be awesome too. So
Be careful though, man. He's a savage, dude. Like he'll blow you up. And
hey,
I like being around him on this kind of stuff because I always tell kids don't get in a roasting battle with a guy that's been roasted,
yeah.
because he has no PTSD, and when I get on there, he always picks on me. So I don't know. I'd have to anyway. Yeah, we'll get him on. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the time and
Love the passion. Love the passion.
Sweethearts and heroes, man. You're doing great work, and man, keep it up. Thank you.
Thanks, fellas. Keep up what you're doing too, man. The world needs to hear this.
Thanks, Tom.